That is 12 straight victories for your Michigan State Spartans, and my goodness gracious, they did it of all places at Madison Square Garden and of all situations when the starters didn't really play that good. Let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can just bet $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning into Locked On Spartans. It's your team right here in green and white on the Locked On Podcast Network. Please rate, review, subscribe, and comment below if you're as high on this game that took place at Madison Square Garden as I am. We are also joined by Sam Martin, friend of the program, great basketball mind. He is back by popular demand. But Sam, you know what? 81-74, the good guys win. They did it for the 12th straight game. They're one of two teams in the nation to not have lost a game since Thanksgiving, Duke being the other team. And it was honestly a meh showing, I think, but in the end, I think that is why it was such a good win, one could argue. And well, I'm going to be one of the people to argue that because, first of all, well, you never apologize for two things in life, Sam. The first, you never apologize for standing up on third down and bringing some noise and acting like a clown inside of the stadium. You never apologize for that. And the second one is, well, you never apologize for winning a conference game on the road. And this is what made this game a certain genre of good. This is the second of all right here. It wasn't that great of a showing for the team, namely the starters. And Izzo said as much. It's not just me, the dweeb with a webcam and a microphone saying that. No, Izzo said that Richardson and Carr basically won us this game, okay? And, well, to make it all about us, this show, that's right, I'm that narcissistic today. We saw a lot of Locked On Spartans jinxes at work in this game. And what I mean by that is that, hey, we had an episode last week where we talked about how Jaden Akins is the MVP of this team so far. 3 of 15 shooting, by far the most missed shots he's had this season. He was fine defensively, but offensively, we also had an episode that Jeremy Fears was playing at an elite level. That was his least productive game in a while. 4 points, 4 assists, and 4 turnovers. We also talked about, hey, Trey Hallman being in the starting lineup. Michigan State has really limited their slow starts. We'll let you look at that. Rutgers 10, Michigan State 3 right off the rip. We talked about how Jackson Kohler is rebounding at an elite clip. Season low 2 rebounds. You had the team show up like, well, they usually lose these kind of games. Not just Michigan State, but all teams in the Big Ten Conference, especially on the road. But thanks to Carr, Richardson, Booker, 50 bench points. Sam, it didn't matter. And that's the mark of a good, deep team. Now that I am done just taking up all the air of those first few minutes, Sam, are you feeling that good about the win? I know it's lowly Rutgers. I know that, Michigan State hasn't played anyone yet, and that's why they've won 12 straight. But I think that was another good genre of a win right there, is just relying heavily on your bench.
There is such a thing as a good loss, but I don't believe there's such a thing as a bad win in general. However, I thought actually this wasn't that bad of a performance overall by Michigan State. I thought the starters, the ball didn't go in for the starters, and it wasn't a great matchup for Zapala.
Sure.
But yeah, they got outstanding performances from Richardson and Carr. But those are those Michigan State's two most talented players. As the season's coming on, are those going to be the two key guys going forward? It's the beauty of this team, Matt, is they're so deep. MSU has had better teams than this, but I don't remember a truly deeper team. They're going to play 10 guys, I think, in every game, and they should. And 7 of those guys are starters. Really the 2 guys who had the great game, plus the 5 who do start for Michigan State, have all earned it and played well over the course of the year. It's just, it's a relentless team to go against. And, Richardson fears these guys don't get tired at the end of the game when they have to handle the ball under pressure because they don't have to play 20, 25 minutes. And yeah, when a few of the key players that you mentioned that, you built up going into the game really didn't perform that well, at least on the stat sheet. Number one, you mentioned with Akins, he brought it on the defensive side of the ball, and so did all of those guys in terms of effort there. Michigan State was pretty solid on that end. I thought, there were definitely some lapses. But yeah, a solid performance, a good win on the road. I think this is the kind of game that pretty good MSU teams have either won in a thriller or lost. So I have nothing to complain about after that.
How many times in the last few years have we seen just the team get punched in the mouth immediately and just play from behind the rest of the game? But they made quick work of erasing that deficit early on. And what really impressed me is, just in the grand scheme of things, I know like Rutgers isn't some defensive juggernaut by any means. They're not horrible. They're kind of just humming around average for defensive efficiency. But it's just the way they mix their defenses, going man, going zone. Never really seemed to phase Michigan State all that much. And Michigan State has been like caught in some situations in years past. The ball just kind of stops, and they all look like a collective deer in headlights, but it didn't look like that. They moved the ball pretty efficiently, 19 assists on 27 made baskets, and like that's what impressed me the most too, is that 81 points at the end of the day, even with kind of just that quirky, all right, we're going to give you a different look every single time you go down the court seemingly. So I don't know if there's anything that really jumped out to you specifically from this game that impressed you the most, but that's what caught my eye the most, is just how well they're still doing in the half-court offense with whatever look they were getting.
I agree. I think Michigan State's 4 guards, Fears, Richardson, Akins, Holloman, do a great job of continuing to attack and being relentless. Yeah. And, it was really the worst Jeremy Fears game, statistically at least, that we've seen in a while. But Richardson kind of more than made up for the difference. But those guys, both of them, they don't stop and think about it. They get the ball, pump fake, go. Get the ball, pump fake, go, pass. And the thing just keeps moving. And MSU is able, with those guys kind of setting the tone, to keep running their offense and keep playing basketball when the game can get tense and grind to a halt. And in past years, they might look for, Miles Bridges posting up 18 feet from the basket, or, hoping for some guy to save you. But they can still play as a team in those moments. I think part of that is having the energy, and part of that is just the approach. MSU's basketball team this year, to me, looks like a football team that runs the ball and stops the run. And it just sucks to play against them. Yeah. Like, they just keep pounding you. And like, the shot map that they take is going to be better than the shot map that you take. And yeah, we can't hit a 3-pointer, but it doesn't matter because our shot quality is going to be better. We're going to have more possessions. We're going to do more in transition, going to play harder and more connected and together. It's a joy.
Jase has been incredible this whole season. Obviously, that was his best game. Again, just like Izzo said, pretty much one of the 2 reasons that you won. The other guy being Coen Carr. Talked a lot about those 2 guys the entire season, but we also do have to put the spotlight on Xavier Booker, who is, in a way, like human cryptocurrency. He's either just like the greatest player you've ever seen in your entire life, or the next thing you know, it's like, can he play Division III hoops? But this was certainly one of the better days, and he had the highest plus-minus in the box score, if you're into that sort of thing, plus 13. But it wasn't just, that he was putting the ball in the deck. He got to the free throw line 4 times. 4 blocks. He was getting it done on both sides of the floor. So, you know what? We talk about the ups and the downs with Booker. We got to talk about the up right here, because without that being the third fiddle off the bench, yeah, I know that Jase and Carr were name dropped by Izzo after the game. Booker was an established presence on both ends of the court here. So just wanted to give him some shine. Is there anyone that you want to give some extra shine to here before we cut to a break and mosey on forward in our conversation?
Well, I think that, it's great you brought up Booker. Real ball knowers and real pod listeners will remember that when we talked about him as he was coming into the program, caution, he's not very good at basketball yet. Yeah. So it's important to remember that he's still kind of a project. And I've been really impressed with his change in attitude this year and doing more of the big man stuff. Totally. And 0 for 4 from behind the arc, but he still brought the effort. And that thing is going to go in for him at some point. And then we'll really be cooking with hot grease.
Sure hope so. I'm going to ask you, it's a ridiculous question, but not because it's a dumb question. It's ridiculous because finding an answer is so hard, because the question is, who is the most underrated player on this team? How do you do that on a team this deep? We're going to find out here after the break, but first you need to talk you people's ears off about TurboTax. That is right, gang. It's tax season coming in hot, and our good friends at TurboTax, well, they want to help you out. This message is a sponsor from Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now, taxes, well, they're matching with TurboTax experts who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided undivided attention as they work on your return, while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. Also, you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Now let's drag him back out here. The one, the only Sam Martin, certified ball knower. And that's the question right there. We got that before the weekend. LockedOnSpartans@gmail.com from All About the Money. So shout out to All About the Money for that question. But who is the most underrated player on this team? Like, you can't say Jase after 20 points, can you? Can you really say Coen Carr? I'm like, is it ridiculous to say a starter's name as underrated like Zapala? I don't think there's a wrong answer here, Sam. So, like, where do you want to go with this?
I mean, it's who is really poorly rated on this team?
I guess Nick Sanders. He's shooting the ball pretty well. Maybe it's him. I don't know.
I do have an answer though, and it's the name that we've been talking about a bunch, which is Richardson. And I think he's underrated simply because what he's doing from an efficiency standpoint is the passing volume, like the numbers of assists aren't quite there, but it's the most ridiculous efficiency season I've seen since Winston was a sophomore and he was shooting like 59% from three for most of the year. Richardson's shooting 64% from two and 45% from three and 85% from the line. And he's got 4.6 assists per 100 possessions and 2.7 turnovers. And he's a true freshman. He's good on he's an actual above average defender and really can heat up the ball and get steals. To have a player as a freshman at his size have such an outsized impact on winning and have it show up in every single category, it just doesn't happen. And he's playing the fifth most minutes on the team, and Izzo's done a good job of kind of, not placing too much expectation on him and letting him kind of come along slowly. But I'm not sure he's not the best player on the team. And as this season goes along, I think he's going to be on the floor at the end of every big game, and he's going to be the guy that they look to with the ball in big moments. We'll see, but I've just been so impressed by what he's done. And even as much credit as he's gotten, it's not enough.
I like that a lot. No, that's solid, because I was going to go along the lines of Jackson Kohler, and this is a odd time to bring it up because this is probably statistically his quote-unquote worst game of the season so far, but we've had plenty of episodes, and it still, holds true even though he just grabbed 2 rebounds. I mean, he did only play, 17 seconds it felt like on Saturday. But we've had episodes when we talk about rebounding percentage, offensive rebounding percentage, defensive rebounding percentage. Like, he's on an elite clip right now. Like, ever since 2008 when Torvik started tracking this stat, he's going to finish, if he holds this percentage, it's upper, 28% for defensive, and it's not too shabby for offensive. He will be like top 5 for Spartans since 2008. Like, and you think of all the great rebounders we've had since those times too. Kohler's right up there with the Draymond Greens of the world. So it's not like, the sexiest slash line at the end of every night. Like, hey, 9 points, 8 rebounds. But, like, he's getting it done on the glass, too, where I don't think he's getting enough credit for that. Again, like, I know we're doing the post-game Rutgers show, so this might sound silly since he was barely in the game. But as a whole, I think I got to go with him as the most underrated, which is weird because the man starts. So.
A name from the Stone Age.
Let's go.
This might even be before your time. Do you remember a player from Michigan State? He played from 1992 to 1996.
Oh, this would be tough. Okay.
Pike. He was a white guy, and this was back when, like, power forwards, were like centers. The team just played 2 centers. He was kind of like a
right.
He led the Big Ten in rebounding, and he kind of played more center at Michigan State, and he made the NBA, and he played for a while in the Nets as like a rebounding Reggie Evans type power forward. And Kohler has way more grace offensively, and he's a better passer than Jamie Fike, but that's kind of the guy he reminds me of. Fike was just this bruiser who played horizontally. He just created space and gobbled up the ball. And that's what Kohler does. He's got 22.2 rebounds per 100 possessions on the season, and he's never gotten more than 2.5 inches off the ground the entire year. Did you see the play where he laid the ball in after the pass from Zapala and like just shot an overhand floater with backspin and swished it? And I was like, do you have like a religious blockage against dunking? Like, what is going on, dude? Dunk the ball.
If I'm thinking of the right one, I think it was like to start the second half, I want to say, but he had that. I was like, I bet he's a hell of a bocce ball player. Like, it's just the finesse and English he could put on the ball. And that makes me think of last year when he tried to go Air Jordan at Purdue. It's like, ever since that moment, I think he's outright refused to ever try to dunk the ball. Yeah, good times. I'm bringing up the glory days right now. Sam, really quick, the haters and the naysayers, of which there are many around Michigan State basketball, they are concerned or sad or upset. I don't know. They're pointing out that Michigan State has only beaten bad teams in this 12-game win streak, which, like, okay, fine. You want me to be not biased right here? Well, that's just objectively true. Like, Michigan State, yes, 8 wins in conference play, but just one of those wins is over a plus 500 team. That's Illinois, okay? But also, they have 4 double-digit victories. Could have been 5 if that guy didn't dot that three-pointer to cash my Rutgers plus 7.5 bet, but that's beside the point. They've been taking care of business in a conference where you're seeing a lot of other teams not take care of business, like Illinois. Okay, losing to USC and Maryland at home by double digits. Northwestern on the road in overtime. Oregon losing at Minnesota. Michigan losing at Minnesota. Ohio State beating Purdue at Mackey. And that was just only going off the top of my head really quick before hopping on. I just jotted down those notes. But that's college basketball. It is a bloodbath out there in the Big Ten. So, yes, 7 of these wins against sub-500 teams in the Big Ten play. Doesn't matter, though. I, for one, am not too worried about it yet. But, Sam, you're smarter than I am. Are you worried about this? Or just give us your thoughts here.
So here's an anecdote for you, Matt. I live in Kingston, Ontario. And there's a decent little golf and country club here, and they've produced some good golfers, including Michigan State's #1 golfer right now is from Kingston, Ontario, the town that I live in. Yeah. Wow. So a golfer that goes to the gym that I work at, where I'm a physio, I was talking about what his plans were after high school, and he said that he got a scholarship offer from a small directional school in Oklahoma, and somebody at the club was making fun of him and going, "Oh, you're going to, Nowheresville, Oklahoma Tech." And I said, "Did you tell him, well, where did you get a golf scholarship?"
Yeah,
it's like,
there we go.
To all the haters and losers, of which there are many, I would say, which 12 teams in a row did you beat that are so good? Like, you play the schedule that's in front of you, and MSU has beaten the teams with great performances. You look at the way, you can go to the Michigan State team on Bart Torvik, and he's got kind of the game score graph, and it's just like that line's going up, man.
Yeah.
They had a couple rough performances in the first half of the season, but they've been beating teams soundly and playing well. And, more than any of that, for me, it's the way that they're doing it. If you've been watching Izzo hoops for a long time, this means something to you, man. Like, this means something to me, watching them play this way, and with this depth and the energy and the defensive intensity, and as we talked earlier, the relentlessness on offense. Even though it's a terrible shooting team. I think they're 347th in the country in 3-point percentage. Yeah. And I'm a religious believer in how important shooting is in basketball, and still I'm learning from this team that you can play beautiful half-court offense with 2 centers on the floor. I didn't think it could be done.
In the year of our Lord 2025 of all year. I saw we left this behind in 2005, but here we are thriving under Izzo ball. It's great. We're going to talk a little bit more about this game. We're going to go to the player haters ball because I got something that I just have to talk about. I'm sure Sam does too. And then, just whatever else we want to hate on here. But first, you need to talk to people's ears off about FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. And yes, the Super Bowl is set. This is not in the ad copy. I'm just speaking from the heart right now. Like, I couldn't care any less about the Super Bowl. Eagles, Chiefs. are you out of your mind? But I still will be watching because of FanDuel. All the great props that they have. The lines, which is already out right now. Eagles are underdogs by 1.5 points. I think I'm going to jump on that right now. But all the touchdown score props, the longest reception props, I will be invested in this Super Bowl. And if you're a new customer, well, you should be invested too. Because, hey, if you are a new customer, place a $5 bet and you could potentially win $200 in bonus bets if you win that bet, guys. It is sensational. And, well, during the big game, the live betting features keep you involved no matter what. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Just bet $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. It's over at FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 59. All right, let's drag it back out here at Sam Martin because there is one thing that happened in that game that I wanted to find a way to talk about here. It's very early in the game. Rutgers, they score a layup. They're up 5-3. Okay, it's great. Madison Square Garden. My God, they are raucous. This could be another dicey game for Michigan State at old MSG. And then there comes our friend, Jeremiah Williams, running after Jeremy Fears after that layup. And like a rabid dog on cocaine, just starts barking directly in his face. And when that happened, I was watching the game solo with my 1-year-old child. And I looked at my child. This is very unhinged of me, but I said, we're going to remember that. Well, he didn't understand what I was saying. He's playing with the ball. We're going to remember that because there are 37 minutes left in this game. And to get another player's grill like that early, that might come back to bite them. Well, that barking dog did not have much more bite because our friend Jeremiah Williams, just 2 points after that explosive reaction after a layup with 37 minutes to go. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Like, it's not like Jeremy Fears bounced back and had an extraordinary game, and that's what, fueled his fire. But certainly that was all the fire that Jeremiah Williams had. So not to dog a team while they're down. Rutgers is not a good team. They're probably not going to make the Big Ten tournament at this rate. But son, I understand firing yourself up. That was about 16 steps too far, and it aged just horrendously. Is there anything you want to hate on? Because you did send me a message during the game that you would draft Ace Bailey in the top 3. Is that I have a bad memory. I'm sorry. I got a little foggy for me on Saturday. Is that what you said? Am I remembering this correctly, Sam?
I'm watching the game, Matt, and I'm just I'm seeing number 4 for Rutgers, and I know the reputation he has coming into the game, and I've seen a little bit of them before, and I just thought, I wonder what people are saying watching what he's doing out there. And I saw a tweet from Aaron Torres, who's apparently a Fox Sports radio host. Sounds like his level of intellect sounds like a sports radio host. Cooper Flagg is going to go number 1 in the draft and should. I get it. But a couple of times a game, you see Ace Bailey at 6'10" do something like this, referring to that turnaround jumper along the baseline he hit early in the game. Say, we sure he isn't the best guy in the draft? Remember in Ferris Bueller's Day Off when, the principal was saying 9 times? Do you want to know how many assists per game Ace Bailey is averaging? 0.9 against 2.2 turnovers. Ace Bailey, I get it. He looks like he's got the physical tools. He's got the size. It's like, create a player, small forward, most valuable position in the NBA. Yeah. He can shoot 40% on threes. And, when the shots go in, they look great. His form is beautiful, high release, high jump. And he's kind of coltish physically. You can see some projection. You can sort of paint onto him whatever idea you want of some Kevin Durant type player. But the thing is, he's terrible at basketball. Like right now in the real world, if you're trying to win basketball games, Ace Bailey is not going to help you. And maybe NBA teams can, a lot of times NBA teams will say, we don't care. We'll teach you how to play basketball. You just need to kind of have the tools. And if that's your organization and you trust in your scouting, then by all means, this is your guy. But if you're trying to win basketball games, especially, we're a college podcast. If you're trying to win college basketball games, Ace Bailey is not useful for that. I asked you before the program, Matt, how far down Michigan State's roster would you have to get where you trade player X for Ace Bailey? And clearly, none of the starting players. I mean, I wouldn't trade Coen Carr for about anything, I'd protect him with my life.
Likewise. Yeah.
But, you know, it's like, would you trade Frankie Fiddler, who's shooting like, 18% from three for the number 3 pick in the NBA draft? And it's like, I don't know, man. Fiddler helps you win. Ace Bailey doesn't know what he's doing. Like, he looks like he could compete against the chair, like, in the NBA workouts where they put the chair there and you shoot against it. But if you're trying to win the actual game of basketball where there's 5 players on each side and you got to work together, it's just, there's nothing there.
I've had 30 minutes to think about it ever since he asked me, like, would you trade Fiddler for Ace Bailey? And, like, it sounds absurd leaving the mouth, but, like, no, I wouldn't trade Frankie Fiddler for who's probably going to be a top 5, if not a top 3 pick in this draft. Because, yes, Ace Bailey at his best, like, I've seen the games, like, where he does have these ridiculous shot selections, and they actually go in at a decent clip, but we saw the reverse of that on Saturday. And shout out to Jaden Akins. I thought he did a pretty good job on him. Never a doubt with that. But, he shot Rutgers out of the game. Now, if you're going for, like, entertainment, I guess I would trade Frankie Fiddler if I wasn't a State fan, because how funny would it be for Tom Izzo to coach a guy like Ace Bailey? Like, I'd take an 18-foot turnaround jumpers on the baseline with, like, 21 seconds on the shot clock. I think Izzo might actually do what opposing fans think he does and actually murder him in the locker room. That would be a spectacle to watch Izzo try to coach this young man. But, no, I'll say it again. I want to be clear. He's a fine shot maker. Sometimes he does have the physical tools and everything, but just like you're saying, Sam, and just like we saw on Saturday, I don't know how good 417 shooting is personally. Maybe I'm just box score watching right now, but I don't think that's a sustainable way to win games. So
that's what it is to me. Is like when you watch the games, the highlights where the points numbers are high. It's the exact same process. It's a bunch of contested kind of mid-range slop. And he'll step into some threes and look pretty good. And he'll dribble into some, he'll take some catch and shoots and that looks pretty good. But if those bad shots go in, then he'll have a good statistical game. If the bad shots don't go in, it looks like today, in any event, he never passes. And it's just not good at helping you win basketball games. So anyway, I'm so grateful to have the forwards that Michigan State has on their team who understand principles of winning basketball. This team, in this contrast with Rutgers, it really, if you push the Izzo agenda of player development and, coaching and cohesiveness and execution, and you look at what Rutgers has become under Steve Pikiell, and Pikiell is a guy who, remember when they used to have like Eugene Omoruyi and playing them would be brutal and they'd be so well coached and play hard, and he sold his soul for 5-star recruits, and now they stink. Look what it got you, Steve.
Not even a Big Ten tournament bid. Which is hard to do. It's hard to do, but here we are. I'm not done hating quite yet. We actually got an email from Evan. So, again, lockedonspartans@gmail.com. He's a Hi Matt loyal listener here in 19 grad. Hey, shout out, Evan. Appreciate it. Can we please do some grave dancing on tomorrow's show? And he sent a screenshot of, well, this can't be right. Maryland 91, Illinois 70 in Champaign. And yes, we absolutely will do some grave dancing, because I was told all week that it was referees were the sole reason that Illinois lost that game. So I'm not just going to, be moan and just rip on Illinois fans. I'm actually going to do a really nice thing, Sam. I'm going to pat myself on the back here. That's how much of a tool I'm feeling like today. But really, just allow me to give you guys free advice right here. I'm taking off my troll hat. I'm not trying to be a smarmy Spartan over here. No. It is a culture issue over there. You will never get ahead by spending 4 straight days between games only talking about officiating. And it wasn't even just between games, it turns out, Sam, because after the game, Brad Underwood, when they got beat by 21 points in Champaign, said about the free throw rate that his team is on right now. No kidding. You don't think I've called the league about that? We went from first to dead last. I've called Terry Weimer. I've called our league office. I'm more than frustrated. Oh my God. That was after their 4th conference loss, Sam, where in those 4 games, they just had one game where the other team shot more free throws than them. Okay, that was after a game against Maryland, lost by 21 points. I'll say that again, where they shot 28 3-pointers. No wonder you're not getting the whistle if you're just jacking it up from behind the arc, Brad. So this is my earnest advice. Look inward. No one ever gets ahead in life by creating boogeyman out of nowhere that, it was the refs, it was the officials, it was the refs, it was the... Be better, be deeper, be more well-coached, and just above all, be more accountable. Okay, just be more accountable. This is going to be the most arrogant thing I've said in quite some time. If there's any fan base in college basketball that knows anything about how far culture can take you, it's right here. It's Michigan State fans. Like, we're watching a team right now that probably doesn't have any NBA players in the lottery in next year's draft. Please stay Jase Richardson. Working teams right now because of culture. Brad, stop whining. So, yes, I will grave dance, but I will also give some earnest, honest-to-God advice to Illinois. You guys got to get out of your own way and start making the games about you and not about the officials. So, thanks for letting me just get that off my chest, Sam. I appreciate that.
Of course. You remember the Doc Rivers Clippers where they had Chris Paul and Doc Rivers, and their best player and their coach were just constantly crying about every single call, and eventually it just seeps into the entire team. Is just all everybody becomes a complainer, and complaining becomes their whole thing. And listen, I know Izzo works the refs like none other, but does he ever let his players do that? No, he does it, and he goes crazy at them, and he's insane. So he probably does, especially at the Breslin Center, influence their calls a little bit, and afterwards shakes their hand, never says a mean word about them in the press conference. That's how you do it, okay? There's an art to grifting the officials. You can't just cry about it all the time. You got to pick your spots and be judicious. I'm not saying you can never grift. No fan of Tom Izzo can say you can never complain about officiating. Of course not. But it can't be your whole thing. Get over it. Move on. Take responsibility. You're probably not getting calls because something about the way you're playing on offense. Are you attacking the rim with the same ferocity? You're getting offensive rebounds the same rate? Are you getting defensive rebounding position? Are you taking charges? Like, figure it out. Again, take responsibility for your own life, Brad. We're going to put together a GoFundMe. We're going to send them to the Tony Robbins weekend, and we're all going to move forward past this, okay?
You get to complain about officiating when the clock starts at 20 minutes in the first half, all the way till it hits zeros. And that's not to say like Izzo hasn't had like the one-off quip in a press conference, but when he leaves that room, when he leaves that, at the very worst, it goes into a press conference and he leaves that room, it's over. It's done. And I'm sure when he's with this team, he's not saying, oh, guys, well, hey, we played really good. It was just the refs that boned us, which, like, it kind of really sounds like what happened at Illinois here. Like, hey, tough loss against Michigan State, but they had it out for us. I feel like they've really embodied that, and it all starts at the top with their head coach. Like, Brad Underwood is a fine coach. He does have Illinois in a good spot right now, but it's just to take that other step where you're doing more than just one second weekend every decade. Like, you got to look inward and build a responsible, accountable culture. I like not to be all preachery, but let me be a preacher right now, man.
Own it, man. Own it. Like, you don't want to, maybe you shouldn't get a technical at the end of the Michigan State game if you're so concerned about free throw disparities.
17 assistants wasn't a good idea. You think that maybe with 2 minutes to go in the game that wasn't the good call? Huh? Strange. How dare you, Sparty Sam, even mention that? Oh, you're one of those crooked people. I just hate those people. And all right, we'll be back tomorrow. Locked on Spartans, your team in green and white. Before we leave, though, Sam, anything you want to plug here before we let you go and enjoy the rest of your week?
Yeah, just Move Better Sam on Twitter, Move Better Project on YouTube. Check me out and look up some stretches. Keep yourself moving in between halves of Michigan State games as you watch our boys get out in transition once again.
Folks, you guys are all the best, especially all you people that are watching live on YouTube. That's right. We like to mix in a live show every now and then, but hey, even the listeners, you guys know I love you too. You guys are all the best. Sam, you're the best. Love you all. Go green.